Cool. Okay, guys. As Zach was saying, my name is Chuck Williams, past president for Project Management Institute of Hampton Roads. One of my counterparts, who is also past president of Hampton Roads, is also here. So I got to keep everything on the up and up and make sure I keep with the program. So Zach asked me a few weeks ago to give a speech on project management related to motivation. And obviously, being a group of entrepreneurs, you have a lot different perspective on what motivation is related to people that you contact or talk to on a daily basis. So, like I said, as a past president, local PMI Hampton Roads, and since the other past president of PMI Hampton Roads just joined us, I'm going to start in with the Kool-Aid speech for PMI. That is, PMI is one of the largest professional organizations in the world. They have roughly 750,000 active members. They have roughly over 600,000 certified PMs of different flavors. There's over roughly 300 chapters throughout the world. And the PMBOK guide, which is kind of the Bible for project management, has over 4.5 million copies in circulation. That being said, here's where I kind of go off script for PMI. There's one statement that PMI makes about projects that basically nullifies most things that they teach. That is, projects start out with a known amount of time, a known amount of funds, and a known amount of resource or scope or scale of what the project's going to be in the end. As entrepreneurs, do any of you know how much it's going to cost you to create your product? That's what I thought. Do any of you know when you're going to be done creating your project or product?
Never.
Yeah, exactly. And I just did this the first time. Let me warn you right now, I'm going to mix up product and projects throughout this because of the group I'm talking to and my background. So they're basically the same, at least in this conversation. At the same time, do you know what requirements are going to meet the needs of your users today? That's what I thought. So basically, we've already proven that what project management is teaching you is, or PMI is teaching you, is not going to be overly effective in helping you. And to kind of give you some examples, 17% of large projects go so badly that they actually put the business itself at jeopardy. That is by McKinsey & Company in 2012. Nearly 2/3 of projects significantly overrun their estimates. That was by Leader in 1992. 64% of features that you include in your products are never going to be used. That was as of 2002 by Standish. And the average project or product exceeds its schedule by 100%. That was 2001 also Standish. So going by project management and PMI's tool sets and whatnot, this doesn't bode well for being a project manager and an entrepreneur. You probably don't want to listen to anything else I have to say. That being said, the other past president, myself, we have some reality. My reality is I have a day job. So I'm going to take off my PMI shirt and I'm going to go to my reality of my day job. So see, you're getting a show on top of the show. So anyway. So anyway, I got a day job where I'm the PMO. And part of my job is to make sure things get delivered on time, within scope, and on budget.
$5 to double most of the hours.
So the reality is when people come up to me when they find out I'm past president, I'm sure Eric can probably attest to this as well. You usually meet three types of people. One of the types of people are, they come up and they say, project management's too difficult. There's too many equations, there's too many things they've got to follow, too many rules and whatnot. That's one of the people. Second type of people is the people that you'll run into are the ones that they hear those statistics that I just talked about, and they'll say, "Oh, it's all snake oil. It doesn't work. Not, you're just a salesman. That's not going to help me." And the third type of people are the people that say, well, what is project management? I want to learn more. I think I can probably use them. Well, most of you are project managers because you were able to get here on time. Now, granted, the reason you got here on time is because you're already in maintenance mode, because you've already figured out how to get out of your house, clothed, fed, and get to some location on time. But the first time you did that, that was a project. So something very simple like that is you got these finite amount of constraints that tell you, okay, here's a project. So instead of going through 60 something slides in an hour, I'm going to hand out a quick one pager. One of the things I like to please pass out. One of the things I like to do is try to express ideas in one page. If you can't express it in one page, you don't know what your problem is, or you don't know what your idea is, and you need to be a little bit more concise. So what I'm going to do is actually use some of PMI's techniques and tools, and you're going to ask yourself, well, why would you want to do that? You just told us that projects are typically unsuccessful and whatnot. And this is going to be a follow-along exercise. There will be, I will grade your papers when we're done here. So and if most of them are going to be unsuccessful and whatnot, you got to keep in mind, though, PMI has been around for nearly 50 years. And for something to be around that long, they have a tendency to adapt in order to succeed. And I think that's kind of why a lot of you guys are here, is because you've adapted long enough and succeeded long enough to still be here. And that's kind of the difference between entrepreneurs, successful business people, and others that are unemployed or, like myself, still have jobs. But one of the biggest methods that project management they've gotten out of that big holistic view of a project and have started really taking to heart agile methodologies and whatnot. So what we're going to talk about today really is just one of those methodologies. Last check, there's 80 plus different methods to agile. We had a discussion earlier about using simple Kanbans to track projects and whatnot. Those types of tools are very, very useful and easy to use. Today I'm going to use a particular agile method that you guys are probably very familiar with, especially as entrepreneurs. But first, let's go back into traditional project management. Straight from the PMBOK guide, a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Okay, well, how does that fit with you guys? I would say pretty much everybody in this room is creating a product or a service. Is that a safe bet? So right there, they've got you covered 2/3 of the way. One of the other concepts that project management has in mind is what they call the triple constraint. That is your cost, your scope, and your schedule, or your requirements, your resources, and your time, depending on how you want to look at it. And then one of the other things that project management has a lot of documentation on are stakeholders. Whether you believe it or not, you have stakeholders. You have lots of stakeholders. One of the reasons why I chose a lot of these different pictures is this is where we start getting to follow along with the plan here. So those stakeholders, they all have different things that motivate them. Zach wanted me to talk about motivation, so here's where we're going to start. The team, and like I said, here's where you follow along, is this little circle in the middle. So you guys circle your little team. One of your other motivational people may be a financial institution or investors or angel investors or family, anybody that's giving you money. One of the other stakeholders is going to be your customer or your users. They're going to be the ones that decide whether or not you're going to be successful, because they're going to either buy or not buy your product. And then the last one that most of us forget about, but I heard a few people talking about one of our friends, Lucian, is the old mighty regulatory or government people. We all love dealing with the government, but if you're going to run a business, at some point or another, you're going to be dealing with regulatory constraints of some sort or another, or rules. So those are your basic stakeholders that are going to be in your projects. And you kind of need to know what and how to motivate those individuals. You'll notice also, though, in the triple constraint that there's quality in the middle. This is something new that PMI added. I think it was edition 4, as far as what makes up constraining factors in a project. Well, you can just cross out quality, because quality is really a biased idea based on the stakeholder's perception. If you're talking to a bean counter or an investor or something like that, they're probably just going to be worried about money and time. If you're talking about an end user, they're going to be worried about scope and requirements. They want to know that it does this thing, this widget does what it needs to do to make them happy. So from that standpoint, quality is one of those things if you hear someone say quality, you probably want to run the other direction, because that's just that's for an entrepreneur, that's probably going to be a significant waste of time depending on who you're speaking to. The customer, if you worry about quality, that's probably the only one you want to worry about for quality. Past that, I wouldn't worry about it. And keep in mind that 64% of what you put into a product isn't even used by your customers anyway, so almost 2/3 of the time they're probably wrong anyway.
That was based on old methodology. No, seriously, like the difference between Microsoft Office and Google Docs. One has a plethora,
Has an interactive capability.
a plethora of functions you never use, and the other one has just
Very
stuff you
generic,
use that's changing.
Yeah, and that's the good thing. Like I said, people are adapting. Even PMI is adapting, going to an agile method as opposed to a holistic method. So those are the things that you need to keep in mind. That being said, that's kind of our basic framework from PMI as to how we're going to start looking at this. So now I'm going to give you like 2 tools and methods that we're going to use. Those are on the outside here. The first one is that agile tool or method that I was talking to you about, and that's an iterative method. You guys have probably seen this multiple times where there's a bunch of rings that are in a line, basically rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat on some sort of process. I chose this spiral because I like the fact that it's growing as you're rinsing and repeating each time. You're going outside and growing your sphere of influence, or in this case, maybe your sphere of customers. I think that's more realistic as to what project manager or product developers or entrepreneurs are trying to do. They're trying to grow that sphere of influence, and each iteration they're trying to do a little bit more to draw more people into that sphere and grow that sphere. So that's the reason why I went with this particular example, to show that you should be expanding that sphere each iteration of a product that you're developing. At that same token, as you're expanding that sphere, you're going to be talking to a lot of individuals. PMI has a simple equation. It is basically n times n minus 1 over 2. So that's the expansion. For every new individual that you're adding to a conversation, you keep expanding it by that particular equation. So from a entrepreneur standpoint, one of the things you need to do is be concise in what you're talking about. So single pagers, like I said, I love single pagers. One-liners or elevator pitches, we've all heard it. We all try to deliver a very concise message. Don't linger. Fail fast, fail often is kind of a mantra that most of us go by. So when you're opening lines of communication, avoid rabbit holes. Don't go into the wouldn't it be nice if we could do this type of stuff. Instead, talk through ideas and try to get the ideas to fail right then when you're talking, as opposed to talking to someone, going out programming for a week or so, then coming back and talking, finding out, yeah, that failed. When if you talked maybe an extra 30 minutes, you would have figured out that's probably not the way we want to go. So talk it down to the point to where you can say, I don't see anything bad with this. Let's go ahead and try to put this out there and see what we get. And then you may find out that it failed.
So just conversing back and forth. Something like
Just throwing ideas back and forth. What sounds good, to a point to where you kind of look at whatever the group is, the 2, the 3, the 5, whatever we have here in the morning at coffee, if everyone says, wow, that's actually a solid idea, can't find anything really wrong with that, why don't you run with it? That can save you a lot of time and effort just talking through things. And then some of the other things that you do is when you talk through things is try to find those experts and whatnot. And this starts getting us into the what Zach really wanted me to get to. The centerpiece of this diagram, as you will notice, is the triangle right here. This is our centerpiece. That's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's if you're a psychology student or ever taken a psychology class, you've probably seen it. It's big in project management as well. But like I said, most of you guys here are entrepreneurs. But I want to check real quick though. Do we have any politicians, any dictators, or any extremists?
Politician right there.
Probably an extremist.
Extremists? Okay.
My wife's a politician.
Okay, well, so from that standpoint, there might be some people that might be interested, but for the most part, what we're going to do is the bottom 3, we're just going to go ahead and X those out because you're not going to impact those 3 whatsoever as an entrepreneur or as a project manager. And if you are, then you're probably, you're probably into some questionable activities and and you probably don't have a lot of friends.
Yeah, that's the upset.
Yeah, exactly. So basically that leaves us with 2 needs. So the 2 needs are self-actualization and esteem. So esteem is basically helping others in order to motivate. Basically that's human nature for all of us. Humans want to help each other, or at least for most of us, I should say, want to help each other. So from a motivational standpoint, that's one of those tools you can use to motivate people, to have people want to try to help you with something. Most of you guys are challenged in your entrepreneurial efforts at some point or another. We're not experts in everything, so we need to go out and find someone that we can get assistance from. The other way we can go out and get that assistance is the self-actualized type of individual. And basically you challenge them through like a X Prize or some type of thing like that, where you set a bar way up there and say, I don't think anybody can do this. And it's going to be those creative types, those type of people that are like the really problem solver or puzzle solving type individuals that say, well, you might not be able to figure it out, but I can figure it out. And that's going to motivate those people to come into your circle and say, hey, I think I can help you here. So you got to understand what's going to motivate people. And like I said, you got to keep in mind too, you only have those 2 motivational possibilities or tools that you can use. What I've done over the years is I have 2 approaches to kind of tap into these motivational needs that Maslow's talked about. And I like to refer to one of them as the Colombo method. Do you guys know who Colombo is? What's he? I can't remember what did he do?
Princess Bride.
Is that
Thing that he's in.
Yeah. Because I was acting stupid, not knowing who Colombo was. I had somebody assist me and motivated him to tell me what the answer was. But obviously, we all knew what the answer was. But anyway, yeah, if you can't understand how easy it is to go in and ask why. Just go up to someone and say, why does this work? Or why doesn't this work? And if it's somebody that's really passionate about that, they're going to sit there and they will break it down in minute detail and help you try to understand it better. You may fully understand it yourself, but you want to see either how much they could potentially help you with where you're roadblocked at, or they may give you a different train of thought because they've approached it from a different angle than you did. So keep that in mind. Yes, most of you guys are probably extremely intelligent and have your ways of doing things, but sometimes they're not the only or best way to do things. So just keep an open mind when you're talking to individuals, and sometimes it doesn't hurt to play dumb, because you can actually get a lot of things out of that, and a lot of discovery happens because of it. If I have time, I'll get into some anecdotal situations that I've used that particular one. And then,
That is asking the stupid questions.
but there's also actual true methodologies behind it, like the 5 whys from Toyota. You've got these 5. If you can get down to 5 whys, that usually will get you down to that concise. Here's what the problem is, and that helps you immensely as an entrepreneur, because instead of kind of wagging it up here somewhere, you can be down to that one minute detail that you can fix a lot quicker, because you know exactly what it's going to take to fix. And at that point, your project's going to be a very small timeline, and you're going to be able to get to the solution faster and deliver to your customers faster. So those 5 whys can actually be very beneficial. Then you have the other method, where this is probably what you're more accustomed to running into, and I call it the Quincy or Bones method. Quincy or Bones, if you guys are familiar with them, they're both also like forensics scientists or doctors or whatnot. Extremely intelligent individuals. Everyone kind of looks up to them. They're the ones that, if they say boo, everyone assumes there's a ghost in the room somewhere. So these are the types of individuals. If you want to use this methodology, you have to know what you're talking about. To motivate people with this methodology, like a good for instance would be 3Scape. You have an expertise in 3D rendering. You had to have in order to be able to create your product. So most programmers probably don't have the concept of 3D rendering or vectoring or things like that. So you probably can speak to that topic better than most. And that can draw in other individuals that could potentially help you, because they realize, hey, this person's already made a product that is an avenue into children. And at that same time, I have an interest in helping young kids learn how to program or entertain them or whatnot. So that may be enough to get that doctor or that triple PhD guy to come in and say, hey, let me help you with this, because I also have a psychology degree and understand children's logical thinking, things like that.
The key realization for me was, how do I can easily connect with that group. However, they're not my customer. So why would I want to do that? It took me a while to figure out it's a network effect.
Right. And then also taught you that you had to quantify it for the teachers and whatnot too, probably.
It brings in outside thinking and perspectives. It's an indirect thing, but it's still very useful.
Yeah, but the only reason it came to you, though, is because they realized, hey, this guy knows what he's doing related to this, but let me give him a little bit more guidance from the expertise that I have. So
exactly what just happened in the Hatch discussion with Facebook ads today.
So keep in mind that, yes, you may be the expert in whatever it is that you guys created as a product, but there's probably somebody out there that can help you tweak it a little bit more. And that's the whole idea to doing that iterative method. The whole idea is to tweak it each time you go along to make it a little bit better, to grow that sphere of influence or that sphere of customers. The way you do that to get down to that one thing or that one product is you get your MVP. It's not Tom, though. Your MVP is not Tom. Your MVPs, you guys have heard it around here, I'm sure, several times. It's a minimum viable product. That's what you are trying to make more concise as you go along. Try to make it a little bit better each time. Eric's heard me say this in several different speeches, but each time you approach something, you should try to make it a little bit better than it was before you got there the first time. And then the next time you improve it just a little bit better this time, and then the next time a little bit better. As entrepreneurs, we tend to want to go out and say, hey, here's this big, huge thing I want to conquer. But unfortunately, the reality is probably like yay big, so you can't get your hands around it. But if you just grab hold of it like here and get a good grasp of it, you can start trying to wrestle it down and actually get a hold of that big, huge problem. But you got to start a little bit at a time and work your way down to that one concise problem at that time. And then, like I said, iterative method, improve it a little bit better so you get a little bit better hold. maybe you bring in another expert, and that arm hold around it gets a little bit bigger, and then you bring in more experts at arm. Next thing you know, you're able to wrap all the way around and just get that whole problem that you were initially trying to get on your own with the help of others. So that's your stakeholders, trying to bring them in, motivate them to want to help you. Either, like I said, the two methods I've used a lot, very successfully, are the Columbo and what I call the Quincy or Bones. And I use this to, oh, sorry.
You may not be appropriate exactly now, but kind of, you hit on reiterating, making it a little bit better. Like I pointed out to Zach that my problem is probably do too much of that, tweaking and tinkering. So how do you guys decide at that professional level?
One's done is done.
Yeah,
that's one of the things with a lot of agile development is defining what's done, and that's where you bring in those experts or stakeholders and say, hey, this is what I got so far. You like it or don't you? And then they're going to tell you whether or not it's good or bad. You have to share. And if you look in here in that little, like I said, that's another reason why I like that little diagram, because it says create, try, and share. You have to share. There's no way you're going to be able to answer 100% of the time, this is exactly what the customer needs. I mean, unless you guys are the reincarnation of Steve Jobs, you're not going to be able to answer that question. And to be completely honest, he was lucky. I mean, most of us as entrepreneurs realize that luck has a lot to do with it. And luck is just persistence in an opportunity-rich environment. That's all luck is. As long as you keep being persistent, as long as you keep improving, you're probably going to get that handhold eventually, and you're probably going to conquer a big problem. But unless you're willing to get out there and start trying to motivate others to help hand lock with you, it's going to be really hard to wrap your hands around a bigger problem and try to make a product that's going to be viable. So,
so is that something at the beginning? So someone said, when is it finished? Someone said, never.
that's true. You should always be trying to improve.
And then with you, if you're just trying to get to a point where you say, I know on this step, it's enough for me to try something else. It's just trial and error, really? You just got to be internalizing it, or?
Well, I would say it's trial and error and internalizing. Actually, it should be that sharing. You need to get it out there. You need to get that feedback, because without that feedback loop, I mean, that's the whole idea to these concentric circles. They're just feedback loops upon themselves. And the iterative method is just that. It's a feedback loop. This worked, this didn't work. Go on to the next. This worked, this didn't work. Go on to the next. Yes.
So if you think about it from the project perspective, you have to identify the scope of your project. So in the beginning, Chuck's question was about your company or service. When is it done? So for most of us here, that'll probably be, at least for the foreseeable future, never. Right? There is no exit strategy for us right now.
But you look at the feature.
Right.
Yes,
so the
that's where you get down
difference
to
would
the
be
concise problem.
So a blog post is a feature.
Yes.
That's its own. Well, that's its own project, if you will. If you think about it from a project management perspective, right? You identify what you want to do.
Or its own iteration.
Yeah, you identify when you're going to be done with it. Tweak until you hit that goal, and then you're done. You move on to the next step.
But another thing with agile development, you have a product that your ongoing iterations, but each iteration is a product in itself. Version 1 is these features. Version 2 is these features plus these features. And if you get that nailed down, you have a goal. That you can.
So you go over like the icebox and then that.
Yeah.
Just one more. So if I want to expand, one, keeping people focused on what you're trying to ask them to help you with.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when you come to like if I come to a group like this and I open it up, probably a lot more necessary than I wanted in the first place. Like, and they could be completely valid critique or whatnot, but you're back here, and so that.
And that's why I mentioned the rabbit hole earlier. Wouldn't it be nice if we could do this, do that, do that? That's where you got to try to, at the beginning, kind of be concise on, hey, this is the problem I want to solve this time, the one problem. And then start trying to get feedback.
So I came to Eric and said, I'm not worried about site performance, but more specifically page load time, like trying to focus in on what.
Exactly. And he could say, hey, that's probably because you're using images that are too large, or hey, you're getting so many hits, you should be using the CDN. It could be anything, but it's one very specific problem that can improve your product for that version. Yeah. So basically, coming back to kind of wrapping us all up into like an end statement is, like I said, you want to use concise problems and loose solutions to motivate others, then turn them into stakeholders by including them into your network of influence, whatnot from that point. And keep in mind that others may have more to offer in the future for you. I mean, we write a lot of people off. We say, hey, we talked to this person, doesn't have anything of interest. I've found over the years that a lot of people that I talk to, it might be 2 or 3 years later, it's like, wait a second, I know that person was talking about this. Let me go see if they have more experience down this path, because this is kind of the direction I'm going now. And before you realize it, that, they lead you kind of like what you're saying, Kevin. They lead you down this path where there's all these other contacts that just open up your eyes to other possibilities and whatnot. So from that standpoint, just keep that in mind. Keep your networks open. That's why I'm a strong proponent for LinkedIn, because you just never know. Doing a quick search out there, you might find contacts that have other contacts that could be of use. Treat others the way you wish to be treated. That's kind of Maslow's 4th level, respect of and by others. And then when you're stumped, you got Maslow's 5th level, which is setting a high bar out there or a challenge. And that's where you're going to get those brainiacs that come in and say, oh, I've got this. I know how to do this. I don't know why you're having such a hard time with it. But then you just say, hey, okay, show me how. This is what I know about it. And most of the time when you're dealing with those, the motivation is going to be on a peer or a mentor-mentee type of a relationship. Because they're either going to help you as a mentor-mentee, or they're going to view you as a peer and say, I can get something out of this too, and I can learn more. And they're always in that type of a situation. So they're always wanting to kind of expand their own knowledge as well. So those two are, like I said, that's kind of where Zach wanted me to go. It's kind of like motivation. And keep in mind, those are the only 2 levels that you're going to motivate on. I said, if you're motivating on the other 3 levels, then you're probably not doing something legal and don't have any friends. So, but that being said, that's kind of a wrap on the general discussion. But I like the side discussions we were having and whatnot. Is there any other questions specifically to kind of these things here, or
Just taking a step back. So you talk about project management, like entity. I mean, it's a frame of thought. There's structure to it. What are other things that people are using otherwise? Because it seems kind of like common sense. This is how you do it.
I mean, the project management
ways of thought.
Oh yeah, I mean that's where Agile came from for, I don't know, probably the last 10 years, or up to about 2 years ago. For the 10 years prior, PMI was probably fighting, would be a good word, against Agile, because you can't do. Zach's a perfect example. Let me explain this to you. When I was president, the first speaker I asked to come into PMI Hampton Roads was Zach. Zach's whole discussion was on basically doing Agile methodologies, basically doing Scrum. Just a quick, hey, you got 2 week sprint. You're going to have something out the door in 2 weeks. Okay, most of the people in PMI, you had Newport News Shipbuilding on. Most of the people in PMI Hampton Roads have a background in very large government contracts. Their idea of a time frame is measured in decades, not in days, not in hours, not in weeks. It's measured in decades. So to them, it's not possible to run a project in 2 weeks.
We couldn't build this hotel in 2 weeks, right? It's a pretty complicated project.
Actually, that's false even. China's even proven that to us.
They can build that.
They can build a 7-story building they did in less than a week.
But
You
it
go out
might fall
online.
Over in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, well, but I'm just saying, you're saying you can't do it. You're saying you can't do it, but if you prep, think about it. Can you build a house in a week?
Yeah, but there, it takes a tremendous amount of preparation, right? So that goes
That's-
beyond the 2 weeks. Right?
Exactly.
So you have several iterations, where the last iteration is maybe the actual
Right,
construction.
and that's the iterative process, right? That's a good example of the iterative process. Is that you've got all these other smaller steps ahead of time, but what a lot of people see is just that last iteration of it, and it's like, oh wow, it got done in a week. They were able to build a 7-story apartment complex in a week.
64% is that the number you said of people, of features that are developed that do not get used.
Rarely or never used. Yes, 64%.
Are there numbers that say by using an approach like Agile, that number is increased or decreased? Or do you not know?
Well, let me get back to the last 10 years. PMI has been fighting,
Yeah.
and finally, the last 2 years, they kind of woke up and said, "Hey, Agile is probably the way we want to go because that's the way things really need to be developed." That being said, there's more research being done on Agile type of methodologies because of that, because they want to be able to prove that, well, yeah, if you're doing like one feature at a time or 2 features at a time, you're more likely to shrink down numbers like 64% down to where you're getting almost 100% utilization, or even people begging, coming back saying, hey, we want a bigger screen, or hey, we want to be able to have a battery that lasts more than 2 hours. Or, I mean, when you think about it, a lot of products are developed that way now. Apple does it on a regular basis. Hey, let's send this out the way it is. We know it's not perfect, but we're going to send it out and listen to what customers have to say about what features they want more.
The way I usually say it is 100, and I said this morning, 100 divided by 1 is 100, 100 divided by 2 is 50, right? So which one do you want all the time into? One, or when you start breaking it up, you're not going to give as much attention to that thing. So try and do it as one or feature set
Or just one thing. Just figure out one problem.
What is the defining? I think I know what you mean by agile, but how does that define?
I think Agile is just the process that he's talking about. So
Yeah,
it's more-
Agile is actually a grouping of about, like I said, 80 plus different methodologies or processes. Carl mentioned he was using Trello. It uses what they call Kanban. And basically, all Kanban is things I need to do, things I'm doing, and things I'm done with. That's it. In a nutshell, that's it.
And Agile is similar to that. There's also another piece at the end, but it's basically ranking things and it's scoring it in a set of things that can be accomplished in
In a given
set
amount of
that you
time.
hold. So if you think that something, for example, 10 points of something is how much you get done in a week, so then you find the equivalent of 10 things to get done or 10 ranking points in that set to get done that week. Now, you might only get 9 done that week, and then the next week you might do 11, but it's more of a, right?
Yeah, you're talking basically that's more of a Scrum methodology.
There's also a
development.
document online called Agile Manifesto.
2002, I think, was the original
Where they
publication.
define exactly what it means.
You use the term Scrum.
It's just like I said, there's like 80 different tools. If you go out and look at basically any of these terms I've used, you Google it, you're going to find a lot of stuff. Agile is kind of that whole set. A lot of people think Agile is one thing. It's not. It's a set of a whole bunch of different tools and whatnot. Iterative is one of the ones that a lot of PMs are comfortable with because we're very used to doing these, what we used to call work breakdown structures. It just kind of fits into that kind of a model, at least for me.
Agile is a generic term.
Yeah.
So it's a type of process, whereas Scrum is something very concrete. That is a very specific type of process that is Agile.
An Agile method, yeah.
Is that an acronym or is that?
I don't think so.
No.
You mentioned the manifesto. What was that?
At the Agile Manifesto. Basically, what it gets down to is the reason why you program is because you want to enlighten yourself. The reason why you program is because you want to make users happy. The idea to programming is programming to its most purest form.
Yeah, to favor people and interactions
Over
tools
processes and tools, yeah.
things like that.
That's why the tool sets within Agile methods are typically very simple, like
Trello.
Trello
Yeah.
or Kanban or the 5 whys, because it's simple. Okay, I asked why 5 times, and I'm probably going to get down to the root of what my problem
That's all the
is.
5 why method is.
Seriously, that's
Why?
look up 5
My
whys.
kid's excellent at that.
Exactly. And that's the funny thing is, as we're growing up, you think, oh man, this kid drives me
Just
crazy.
look at
From
Ruben, shut up.
from 3 to 7, they drive you crazy. But in reality, they're very intelligent individuals because they're the best at learning. They have Agile down perfectly, because you think about it, a child is adapting
Yeah.
from like the day they wake up and they come out of the uterus and stuff. They're adapting.
Yeah.
Hey, now I can move my head. Now I can crawl. Now I can go to the bathroom on my own. They keep adapting. They are doing iterative methods the whole way along. But for some reason, when we get older, we think we got to put a bunch of big bow wrapping and all this other crap around it, and we lose that just kind of naive look at things, or the unbiased look at our approach to different challenges.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I'd be more than happy to like point you to a bunch of different tools and stuff, but what it really comes down to is what you're most comfortable
Well,
with.
yeah, I mean, time management, just getting started. I've gone from having a part-time job, so I did this when I had time. Now it's my full-time thing. And I'm trying to figure out how to balance my time to prioritize. So,
There's a tool that you can use to help track your time and figure
Pivotal
out.
tracker.
Pivotal tracker. I think.
yeah, I mean,
That's complicated though.
No, there might be another one.
You know, the
But
easiest.
is it so much tracking your time, or just like making sure that you work on the right thing?
I mean, so
Yeah.
I'm not very good at those time trackers and stuff. I try to use them and they just fall by the wayside.
So one of the best things you can do on a daily basis, pick 5 things you want to get done that day. First thing you do when you get up in the morning, as you're having your coffee, write down 5 things you want to do that day. That's it. No more, no less. 5 things. I guarantee you throughout the day, you'll do those 5 things, and as you do them, just check them off.
Yeah.
It's a game. You check them off.
You use you have an iPhone
Keeps awesome for that.
or Mac? All right. Well, so yeah, we have on iPhone. There's a reminders app, and I just put everything in there, and then I have one category called Top 6.
Yeah.
It's 6 items instead of 5. I read it was 6 somewhere, but
Yeah.
6 things I want to do today. And so I'm constantly looking at this top 6, and figuring out how I can get these things done.
But actual things that you can do them, right?
Right.
Very
I
Yeah.
can build a house today.
Yeah.
I can maybe finish putting that nail into the house.
I might be able to roof by the end of the day. That is if the house is already built.
And actually, I read an article about the psychology of getting motivated, and it said that if you find something small to do initially in the morning, you tend to stay in there. Like an object in motion stays in motion, right? But an object at rest will stay at rest. So you need to find something small, like if going for a jog is your to-do, going and put your tennis shoes on should be the to-do, the task to do before that.
A series of small wins.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that
So, and then you work your way up, and once you get going, you start working on those bigger things.
And that gets into self-motivation, which wasn't part of my topic, because Zach said, hey, I want to know how you motivate other individuals and whatnot. So,
Right.
but self-motivation is probably an even bigger topic, because you need to be able to motivate yourself before you can motivate others.
Another thing on the top 6, one thing that I do is I determine what my large tasks are for the week. And then I choose one of those large tasks for Monday and divide it up into 6 things. And at the end of the day, if I have time, I'll think of what I want to do tomorrow, and I'll go ahead and create my 6 tasks for tomorrow. That way, when I wake up in the morning, I can
You're already
do that
done,
first
yeah.
easy one right out of the day. And that way, you set yourself up to succeed the next day. Because if I wake up and I don't feel good, I don't do my task list. And I end up watching TV all day. Or playing PlayStation.
Yeah, my frustration is I'll work for 12 hours and then I'll take a step back and be like, all right, what the hell did I actually accomplish today? You know, and then,
Well, and that's the good thing about a checklist, is because then you've got that checklist. Say, oh yeah, I've got 4 of these things checked off. I know what I've done today so far.
so one of the things I was trying to move away from is lists have always been my thing, but then I get these soul crushing
Epic list.
lists of 100 things that I never worked through, you know, and like
5. Any list that like I said, I've done different speeches, but almost every speech has somewhere in there the idea of 1, maybe up to 3 things that you can do at a time. But on a list, I'll say, yeah, you can do 5 because it's something you keep track of. But most of us are thinking about 1 thing at a time, at least if we're going to effectively get to a solution for that one thing.
That's what I love about Basecamp is because you can have a list of 100 things, but if I only have due dates for today, I can filter that list just so today.
Right.
Of course, that's a big service.
Well, that's the same way with most email clients. They'll have a task list.
Right.
And you could have a crap ton of tasks out in your future, but it's only to show you what's either a past due
Yeah.
or what's due
I
in
think
most
Gmail
cases.
has one. Oh,
Gmail's
that's
got-
what it just shows today.
I didn't like their task list, so it seems kind of convoluted. But I like Google Keep. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
It's just like a post-it note kind of system. You can create to-do lists, and you can set notifications that are geographical. So if you go next time I'm in this zip code, I need to be
Pop
remembered
up
to do
this note,
and
yeah.
it'll send you a
Oh, that's
notification to
great.
all your devices.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
Google's gonna rule the world.
And Google does rule the world, in case you didn't know.
But I'm kidding.
Like, if Google wanted to do something, like no one's gonna stop them. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, was this a decent discussion for you guys? I mean, did you
Yeah, it was
understand the
very
the two top motivational things you have control over?
I will say, like, I didn't get anything that I thought this was going to be about, but I got a lot of good stuff. Like, I literally was expecting, like,
So just a quick recap. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, you good, man.
The quick recap. The Columbo method is to ask questions.
Just
and let
ask
them help you,
questions.
right?
Yeah, make it
That motivates them. What
that
was the
motivates
second
a lot of people. The second one is being one of their peers or even being more intelligent than they are, to where they want to listen, but they also want to get involved because
Gotcha.
of either the growth of knowledge or to be able to help you with knowledge.
More intelligent than everybody else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when I read Project